All right, let's jump right in. Today, we are tackling a huge and honestly kind of mind-bending idea. What if I told you there's a way to unlock trillions of dollars in value by changing pretty much nothing at all?
I mean, just think about the huge problems we're all facing, right? Stuff like our power grid being so fragile, water shortages popping up everywhere, the economy just feeling stuck. These are massive, overwhelming challenges.
And what are the usual answers we get? Oh, it's always the same old story. We need new laws. We need bigger budgets. And then comes the endless political fighting. It's just exhausting. It's slow, it's messy, and let's be honest, it rarely gets the job done. But what if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if the real solution isn't about fighting a war to change the system, but about just looking at it in a new way? What if the answer was, incredibly, to change almost nothing?
Yeah, you heard that right. This is the core idea we're digging into, a strategy that requires no new laws, no new regulations, and no new taxes. I mean, that sounds completely counterintuitive to everything we're normally told, doesn't it?
And the prize for the shift in thinking? It's not some small change. We are talking about an estimated, wait for it, $17 trillion. And the craziest part? That value is already there, just hiding in plain sight. Okay, so how on earth does this work? Here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at this $17 trillion puzzle and the new way of seeing that unlocks it. Then, we'll talk about why the electric grid is so central to all this. We'll identify the key anchors of trust needed and see how this creates value for, well, everyone. And finally, we'll lay out the step-by-step path for the first mover. All right, let's dive into that first piece, the $17 trillion puzzle. I mean, the big question is, how is it even possible to unlock that much value without changing any of the rules?
Well, the key isn't a new law or some grand policy. It's a total shift in how we see things. It's about stopping the fight against the system and instead learning how to fit perfectly within it. So think about it like this. The old way, it's like constantly pushing against a brick wall, right? You're trying to force change and it's all based on this idea that there's not enough to go around, scarcity. But this completion approach, that's totally different. It's about finding the one missing puzzle piece that makes everything else click into place. It unlocks the potential that was there all along. It's a mindset of abundance, not scarcity.
And this brings us to a really cool term, completion value. You know, it's kind of like looking up at the night sky. The stars are all there, right? You don't need a new law to create them. You just need to see the pattern, to connect the dots and see the constellation. That's exactly what this is. It's about spotting the hidden connections, the completion geometry between all these different players, and then using the power they already have to bring them together.
Okay, that sounds great in theory, but where do you actually start? Well, the argument is that the genesis ignition, the place where this whole thing kicks off, is something that connects to literally everything. Our electrical grid?
And why the grid? Because it's more than just wires and poles. It's described as the completion geometry made physical. Think about it. It's the only system that physically touches everything and everyone. Data centers, your house, farms, factories, they're all connected. It's basically the real-world map for finding and orchestrating all this hidden value.
And here's the kicker. The money to get this started, it's already there. Seriously, we're not talking about asking for new funds. We're talking about billions, with a B, that utilities already have approved for things like modernizing the grid or preventing wildfires. That capital is just sitting there, waiting for a new purpose.
So, this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky idea. There's a real, practical plan. A utility can step up and become what's called a completion orchestrator in 3 pretty straightforward steps, all using authority they already have. First, they just get their biggest customers in a room. Second, they design a new project, using that capital we just talked about. And third, they run a small test, a little proof of concept. That's it. No new permissions required. Now, of course, a utility can't do this all by itself. This whole new way of working depends on bringing in other institutions, specifically the ones we already trust to have our best interests at heart.
These are called the trust stewards, and they're basically the bedrock of our society. We're talking about utilities, with over a century of public service, land-grant universities, which have been stewards of knowledge for ages, and public agencies that are legally required to work for the public good. And why them? It's simple. They don't have to go out and earn our trust. They've already got it. They're already regulated, and they think in terms of generations, not just the next 3 months.
Okay, so this is all really interesting, but it's still a bit high level, right? What does this actually mean for you, for me, for a small business owner? Well, the answer comes down to a really important difference. This is so critical. This is not wealth redistribution. It's not about taking from one person and giving to another, which, as we know, just leads to endless political fights. No, this is about wealth completion. It's about finally recognizing and, yes, paying for the value that people and businesses are creating right now, value that's just been invisible and ignored until today.
And this is where it gets really tangible and exciting. A homeowner could suddenly become more than just a taxpayer. They could be a vital node in a microgrid, getting paid for helping the grid. A farmer isn't just selling corn, they're also getting paid for providing valuable water data from their land, something they're already monitoring. It's not about signing up for some new government program. It's about creating new ways to get paid for things people are already doing.
So, the billion-dollar, or I guess trillion-dollar question is, how do you start? Does this take 20 years? Nope. There's actually a concrete 12-month blueprint for the first region or state, the first sovereign, to kick this off like tomorrow.
And the path is actually pretty simple when you break it down. Months 1 to 3 are all about discovery, just getting the right people in existing meetings to map out the possibilities. Then, for the next few months, you design the first completion circuit, again, using authority you already have. Months 7 to 9, that's the proof. You run a small-scale demo on a site that's already got the permits. And finally, you scale it up using the business channels that already exist. The key takeaway here, not one single step needs a new law to pass.
And you've got to understand, being the first to do this is a huge deal. The first state, the first region that cracks this code gets a massive advantage. They could lead a new $17 trillion global market, attract a flood of new investment, and start tackling their biggest problems from a place of abundance, not scarcity. That's a game changer.
So when you boil it all down, what's stopping us? It's not technology, it's not the law. It really just comes down to perception and a bit of courage. It's about having the vision to see the connections that are right in front of our faces and then having the will to just link them together.
The framework is already built. The value is just sitting there, waiting to be unlocked. The path forward doesn't need a single new law, just a new pair of eyes. The only real question left is, who's going to be the first to see it?